So, Amy's going to tell me everything you need to know. We'll stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'll start with a roll call. Director Asner?
Here.
Trujillo?
Here.
Director Faulkner?
Here.
Hudson? Director Mueller?
Here.
Vice President Myers? Here. And President Petroff? Here. Before we advance, we'll just read. Before we start our monthly SSD Board of Education work study, I'll take a moment to remind the audience, directors of the board, on the work study process. Work study is a time to receive information from SSD leaders. We have 20 minutes set aside for each presentation and 20 minutes for the board to ask questions. If in the event we are approaching the 20-minute marker, I'll alert the group when there is 5 minutes left. We ask that at that time the presenter finishes time and the board director asking for all the board members. Is item 2.01, which is the recognition.
Good evening. I'm just Dr. Myers, board, Dr. Keenan. My name is Philip Boyd. I'm Chief People and Culture Officer. I have the distinct pleasure of discussing tonight Dr. Michael Macklin. As an organization, SSD has made a commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. We are fortunate to have Dr. Michael Macklin leading these efforts. Not only is he leading important work in SSD, but he's also been collaborating with partner districts and contributing to the professional development opportunities for other school professionals. Sharing his expertise, recently Dr. Macklin presented at a TEDx event at the University of Texas in Austin. He was selected from over 300 candidates nationwide and spoke about how systems impact students and also impacts classroom culture. Dr. Macklin was also recently selected as the first of the top 10 most successful diversity and inclusion leaders to watch in 2023 by CIO Views magazine. The issue was published this week. In addition to these recognitions, Dr. Macklin and Dr. Keenan have been invited to present at the RTM Business Group K-12 Innovation Forum in Dallas in May. Please join me in celebrating Dr. Macklin.
Thank you very much. As I was sitting there, I was saying, man, who accomplished all that? I'm very honored, thankful. I do want to give accolades here to my DLT colleagues who are in the room. This work would not be without them and the collaboration that takes place. Also, Dr. Diggs, who is there in the back, and Dr. Harris, who could not be here. Truly, for me, this is a honor and a time that I'm really proud to serve in a special school district. I don't take the word serve lightly. I truly believe that this is this work that we do every day. I didn't choose it. It chose me. We can always get individuals to look at the world anew and to truly have a mindset of self-reflection and introspection. Where things need to go, we will all be in a better place. One of the things that often resonates with me is there is a African hymn. The chorus of that hymn strictly says that I looked at my hands and my hands looked new. I looked at my feet and my feet did too. This hymn was written during the slavery times, and so no slaves were getting new hands and feet, but what they were saying is that I'm looking at my world in different perspective, understanding what that perspective is. So again, I am thankful, I am honored, appreciative to those here and those who are continuing to work.
I'd like to say, it is such a joy to have Dr. Macklin leading this work. It has been a journey for the last 3 years, and we were just talking today, and I remember our interview. It was during COVID time, and we were on Zoom, and I remember his interview so much with the energy and what he has brought and what he has continued to work on throughout these last 3 years has just transformed. Really do appreciate his leadership. He's very humble. Because he told me, he's like, I need to take a couple days off. I have this TED Talk thing. And I didn't realize it was like me in Austin. So it was, he's always very humble about his work. And this is just such an honor that he has been able to lead and support us through our journey here. So our SSD leadership team. So thank you.
Would it be possible to hold deadline, Dr. when you get
Somebody get a camera out. Get your phone out.
I think this would be one we would like to have published.
Hey, everyone come on.
I know you're going to get embarrassed, but that's okay.
Get your, next couple.
Do you want
What are you feeling? So we don't highlight that. Short people in the front.
Yeah, let's sit up.
Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Ready? 3, 2.
Congratulations.
Before we move to our next agenda item, I just want so we'll move to agenda item 2.02, progress update on 5-year equity.
Great, thank you. Joining me this evening is Dr. Daryl Diggs and also Kathy Russell, so we appreciate this. Next slide. Not working. Okay. So we have another clicker here that try. There we go. Stay ready, so I don't have to get ready. Okay, so good evening, President Poptroff, Vice President Byers, Board of Education, and this evening we will be presenting here on the 5-year equity plan update. So the purpose of this presentation here is to provide updates as it relates to the 5-year equity plan, which was approved tonight. I will be presenting along with Dr. Daryl Diggs. Again, this year for equity here really is a great year because it talks about a year of accomplishments and what that really means, not only local and regional, but also national accomplishments. And it's great that when in this work, when your colleagues can recognize the work that you've been able to do and really be able to assist the organization move those pieces forward. And so these first slides here start off with a little bit of what those look like. The MSBA conference, Dr. Harris was featured superintendent inside of there. Also, which was already said earlier, Dr. Keenan and I will be headlining the Innovation K through 12 Forum Conference in Dallas. So again, that was really selected from the equity work that took place. The TEDx talk there, actually Diversity, which is a national podcast that highlighted the work that took place, and then of course, So really, as we talk about the areas of indicators, this is a board-approved areas of indicators as it relates to access here. And so these are pieces that we are looking and still planning to tackle here. We've delved into a few, but looking to really provide the 411 instead of the 911 that drives the work that takes place. Also, I want to note here when you talk about the collective actions here, one of the key pieces when you talk about organizational work and really being able to delve into the collective actions, which I'm very, very proud of here, is that 80% of organizations or school districts note that they are stuck in the work or can never get started. Think about that, 8 out of 10. School districts or organizations note that they are stuck in the work or can never get started. And so when you talk about the 23 collective actions that was approved in the equity framework and identified by the Board of Education. To this point, 17 of the 23 in year 3 are completed or ongoing, which is 73%. And so going into year 4, in year 5, we are well ahead of where we need to be, ensuring that we have more equitable organization for all. When we talk about human resources or OESC, and really the collaboration that is taking place with the OESC or human resources fall into a couple of key areas. I think number one, really trying to examine what are those potential inequities in the workforce. All areas, all institutions have inequities in the workforce, and then how do we collaborate to ensure that we highlight what those inequities are and bring those to a space and place of resolve. I think one of the pieces here, and again, this quote also resonates, and it's really, this is the second time seeing it, that we are committed to ensuring the engagement and embracing the models of DEIA practices. We talk about retention. What does it really mean to retain? We know that SSD has done a great job of being able to hire, but what does it mean to really be able to retain? So just a couple of key pieces here when we talk about the retention and how we go about doing that so staff can thrive. So the first piece is really understanding that we need to adopt equitable practices, and so those practices will drive the retention process of the organization. You can hire as much as you want, but until there's a feeling of gratification or a feeling of inclusion, those persons won't foster a sense of belonging. Being able to monitor the retention and hiring and recruitment of staff and what that looks like. Collaborating with partners to ensure that we have that vital success. And then also ensuring that we have highly qualified and again with low turnover to ensure that we have the outcomes that are needed. I stay here for a minute because this is the North Star, which is 2% and 10%. The 2% goal was set as it relates to recruiting minority individuals, and then the 10% goal was set as retaining individuals. So those are the goals that were set, 2% and 10%. Let's talk about the goal areas here. So there's really 3 goal areas here that we've been working on this year to really highlight. The 2%, again, we talked about also onboarding, and so Dr. Harris participates in really 2 facets of onboarding. One is our new para orientation onboarding, which I'll talk a little about that later, but also our onboarding that takes place with all of our employees. And so through those pieces, the work is done about really understanding what is the framework, a shared language to provide shared accountability for all. Also working with the recruitment and retention managers to assist in being able to be visible and also be active at job fairs. Also being able to develop a fair and equitable screening process to ensure that we are not only attracting, but also ensuring that we're not screening out individuals because of certain biases. And then that last piece is collaborating with OESC as we look at a new ISS system. So again, we talk about the screening process, and again, this is a draft, it's work in progress, and so we talk about the initial phases of what that may look like, from the approval to the posting, to the screening, to the interviews, to the candidacy, and then the hiring. Being able to have this process fleshed out will relegate and lead to more equitable opportunities for all. One of the other pieces I want to point out when we talk about recruitment and hiring is it is vital that individuals don't let their biases get into the way, which we all have biases as it relates to the hiring process. So on January 4th, 2023, Mr. Boyd delivered a workshop training to all our hiring managers to equip managers in knowing how to interview effectively with minimal bias. And it's really imperative to get the best candidate in the role. Also, again, when we speak to the recruitment and retention goals, speaking of 2%, and again, to increase staff diversity by 2% here is a goal of the framework. So you can see, and these numbers are here just to talk about a baseline for 2022, 21-22 for breakdown by race, and then also where we break down by gender. You can also see here where the national and state and local demographics of teachers range, and that's important to know because when you talk about teachers of minority and where SSD ranks nationally and what that looks like is key here, and also according to Missouri and the Dexter report card. So this is key here because it really shows here just a couple of key pieces. I think that the chart here really shows that the percentage of employees by race or ethnicity, which would show that to date we are meeting the goal of 2%. But also the bottom chart on the left, which shows the new hires in 22-23, shows that 34% of the new hires, again, 34% of the new hires identify as minority, which would say that on this plan, on this long-range goal, we will truly succeed the goal of 2%. Also, when we speak to our goal areas as it relates to the district goal of retention, and retaining is key. Again, in all of the presentations through OESC that has been delivered, you have been able to see that one thing that Special School District does a great job is really being able to hire. But how do we move that hire to a focus on really being able to retain? And so when you look at the retention here, as it relates to the teachers, the paraprofessionals, and administrators. And I'll start first as we talk about the paraprofessionals. I think overall, year to date, retention goal is headed for its highest percentage that it's been in 7 years. And someone would say, well, Dr. Macklin, why do you think the para retention rate is so high? You're almost looking at a 13, 14 percentage point increase year to date. And I think there's a couple of reasons why. I think there are purposeful conversations that are happening. Also, our new para orientation is just fabulous and really being able to equip, talk about individuality, equity, the intentionality of getting pairs what they need. I think over 400 pairs have been trained in our new para orientation, which each day focus on a different aspect, onboarding, NCI training, students for independence, right, equity. And so those pieces are really key to providing a sense of belonging. Again, there we have teachers, and then we also have administrators. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gerald Diggs, who will be presenting some pieces as it relates to the equity framework through the lens of teaching and learning.
Thank you, Dr. Macklin, School Board President, also our Superintendent, Ms. Keenan, Dr. Keenan. I appreciate each and every one of you, and those of you that are here in attendance and also at home online watching this. So I just want to say just a few really quick things. In regards to the equity framework, it in and of itself is a robust framework that has many different layers to it. A particular component of the framework directly ties to teaching and learning, and that's the facilitation of content, meeting districts where they are, and then also just extending our collective actions in meeting those goals. And so having said that, so this is where we're going to go in my short moment today. First and foremost, I'll talk about our equity teams, which each SSD site-specific what we're doing together as far as their team. And then I'll get into some of the courses that I have facilitated thus far. Year 3 is focused on diversity and culture. Year 4, which will be next year, will be on bias. Excited about next year, as well as some site-specific learning that we're doing in a variety of places across our county. From there, I'll jump into some of the collective actions that I've had a chance to dive into in regards to our school sites, and also some teams outside of our locus here. So I'm really excited to talk to you about that. So next, let's start with this. For year 3, the focus has been culture and diversity, and these are the courses that I've had the opportunity to facilitate across our county, as well as throughout our district. A lot of these are very popular for those that have signed up for wanting to extend their learning and deepen their growth, more so grow their capacity. A few of those, and not to belabor this point, a lot of our staff members really want to learn about intersectionality. They want to dive into culture. They want to understand bias and what identity stripping happens to be and look like. And furthermore, I've been reached out to in wide variety to have conversations about teaching culturally diverse students. So from those conversations, they have enriched, and also we're gaining depth as we're having more and more conversations. Now, having said that, next year we're going to add on to our wide buffet of courses that we offer, and that's going to be centered on bias, specifically cognitive, confronting bias. What does that look like? Also implicit bias. How do we combat and work through our own natural inclination to think a certain way or believe a certain way or not give each other the license to have grace. And so we're going to dive into that next year. So furthermore, and I'll get into the 95% on the next slide. So with the 95%, and this is really important for me, through the kick-up system that we have throughout Special School District, I have been able to achieve an average of 95% in a variety of areas. For those that have been with me, we have been able to learn and grow together around these 4 bullet points. We've been able to increase our understanding, dive deeply into our work. Many have felt that they've been able to take our conversations and content to their classrooms, to their school sites, and with their students as they're learning and growing together. And furthermore, if you're able to look through the presentation, these are just some quotes from those that have commented on learning that we've done. One on top, sometimes our desire to make our own lives easier leads to a status quo bias, and that isn't forward movement. And again, towards every conversation that we have, I try to give something for people to read, something to watch, something to listen to. But the richness of our conversations through the content is through collaboration and conversation through our dialogue together. And then the second quote is right below. I think the presentation planted a lot of seeds. And if we aren't able to plant seeds, it'll be really hard for all of us to grow. So having said that, moving forward, this is just a really brief synopsis of the work that I've been able to participate in across our district, specifically North Tech, South Tech. We've had quite a few lunch and learns. Equity department courses at North Tech, South Tech, I was there today. We were extending a conversation specifically on belonging and teaching culturally diverse young people. And then later in May, we'll come back together for intersectionality and a little bit of bias. For Northview, we've been there quite a few times, or me specifically, working through an equity breakfast. This is where I bring an article, and we work through that every month, as well as perspective experiences and also microaggressions training. And then Southview, I was also with them this morning. And with them, I tried to pivot a little bit, but also extend a conversation around, density. density of science teacher, excuse me. So as we were talking about dignity, we wanted to also understand what would it look like to extend a conversation around appreciation? What would that be? And so I used a little bit of Gary Chapman's work, if you're familiar, about 5 love languages. We talked about that this morning, and it was a really rich and deep conversation. Now, furthermore, as I bring one of our principals, Ms. Russ, up to the podium, I want to mention some more of the work in our other sites, Ackerman Bridges, JDC, and also Norton. But specifically for Litzinger, Ms. Russ is going to speak about some of the work that I've been able to participate in with her and her staff under her leadership.
Thank you to the board and Dr. Keenan for having me this evening. We have been working with Dr. Macklin and Dr. Diggs for 3 years now on our equity plan and on increasing just our competency. And so in February, we worked extensively with Dr. Diggs on really exploring as a staff, our entire staff, those unconscious thoughts, ideas, and feelings when we're really having tough conversations about diversity and inclusion. We were able to spend a significant amount of time as a staff really having those introspective time and conversations. And then we moved into identifying differences between diversity and inclusion and how they contribute to a sense of belonging. All of this in alignment with our equity plan and our building and the work of our equity team. We're just grateful for the support from the district and the leadership in helping guide those conversations and help us on our journey in order to translate that information into meaningful changes in our classroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. I appreciate that. So again, going back to the slide before us, Bridges, a lot of professional learning, again, tailor specific courses to their needs, and also our juvenile detention center. Dr. Macklin and I participated in a series with them that started last July. We were able to conclude that learning and that work last month. So excited about that. So as we move forward, when it comes to equity in our SSD partner school districts, it's really important for us to have deep learning as we're moving forward through the equity framework. I just want to share just a little bit of the conversations that we've had with our groups. First, our human resources department, in addition to homebound, transition, early childhood ABA, and also our collective bargaining groups. Just being sure that we're always having a conversation about what is the biggest difference between equality and equity, and then how can we put that into practice. So furthermore, when we continue our collaboration across our partners, what's really exciting is that there are conversations being had about extending what this looks like. So for example, with the Brentwood School District, not only have we connected with their all staff, their full staff, we've also met with their leadership teams and had chit-chats about, hey, what would it look like to be truly equitable, to really understand how we can move the needle forward for all children in their space. Recently, I was within the Pattonville School District having a conversation about under-resourced communities. And then also, the reason why Bayless has an asterisk next to their name is because we're talking right now about next year. What they would like to do is to have a day-and-a-half PD where we're having, again, deep, intentional work around equity, inclusion, accessibility. All right, so as we move forward, and again, I don't want to belabor your evening, but we're having some really deep and impactful work that's happening. Really excited about the growth that I've been able to accomplish under the direction of Dr. Macklin and his leadership. But in regards to collective actions, I wanted to share this piece with you. It is my charge to help develop a list of topics to help us really understand, hey, where does bias live? What can we do together for all people, including students and also the workplace? With the help of our CEIS team, we were able to really look at and understand, like, hey, what is happening within our school psych division for us to be able to be really impactful? And some of their thoughts were around these 3 pieces. Hey, maybe we need to understand and have PD around the assessment tools that we use with children. And then second, they felt that it would be vastly important to dive deeper into PD, knowledge, skills, how to work with our EL and emerging bilingual population. And then last but not least, they wanted to fully uncover student observation. What does that look like when it comes to time, school data, what's collected and what's used? So just great movement, and I'm really excited to be able to hand that off pretty soon. But with that being said, A lot of my work dives into evaluative tools, assessment criteria, and then last but not least, just strengthening our leadership when it comes across our district. And so with that being said, I have the fortunate opportunity to be invited to this here, to be able to read books to our young children. And one of the books I read was from one of the members of Run DMC. And so as we're reading this book together, the students were having a good time, but it was really important that I hit home with this quote that's up on the screen at this moment. Originally given by Glenn Singleton, he talked a lot about race. And so what I felt to be really important and impactful for our work through the equity framework is to isolate what true equity is. So we must, and I believe this to be true, we must isolate and focus on true equity while acknowledging a broader scope of diversity. We are a vast district with a lot of potential and a lot of growth that we can have with young folks that we have proven to accomplish. And my goal is to continue that work. So I just want to say thank you. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Dr. Diggs, Kathy Russ. And so really when we talk about here, the recommendations for next steps, and again, this is a glimpse, Dr. Diggs mentioned the collaboration as relates to the partner school district, and even when you look at Brentwood School District hosting their entire convocation with all of their staff there, but really the pieces as relates to the equity leadership work at Brentwood and working with our partners at Clayton, and then our Hazelwood in the partnership respects, and even leadership training for our leaders in Hazelwood. And we have worked intently with Michelle Obama, which is the early childhood in the Riverview School District, really getting to understand that that's where a lot of, unfortunately, that's where a lot of disparities in educational equities start. And so to try and provide that staff with those pieces and as it relates to, again, sense of belonging. Lindbergh, Maplewood, Richmond Heights, really identity stripping. How do we strip students of identity when they walk in the door? Parkway, Webster Groves, a series of learning with Blades Elementary and Dr. Booker there in Melville with their entire staff this year, and then also Webster Groves. And so it brings us really to, when we talk about recommendations, how do we continue this work? And so the recommendation, two recommendations, is to add a director of equity at partner school districts who will drive and be able to help eliminate the inequities for students and staff in our partner school districts. We want to be able to go deep into this work, and so that's number one. And then also number two, as we talk about an equity facilitator who will be responsible for facilitating this work at courses as we continue to provide what is needed for students and staff. Questions? Comments? No, we got a lot.
I have a question. First of all, comments. That is not a transfer form.
Thank you, Dr. Cooney, I really appreciate it.
Now, I got a question for the national, state, and local demographics of teachers, okay? Now, look at that slide. We don't look bad, and it breaks down across, but when I look at it, how do they define other, Missouri and national versus here? Why are we only 2%? Why is Missouri 15.6? Why is national 13.5? I mean, that's a large difference. Is that a Hispanic? They're including in there? What are they including?
Yeah, it could be those who have not identified as other, and it also could be a makeup of race that has not, again, I say race or ethnicity, but a makeup of race who have not yet got to the amount of 1% or 2%. You also see in my slide where it says other, as it relates to the slide right after that, which says less than 1%. So I think all those pieces really play.
I mean, it's just that stands out. I mean, of all, when you look at the differences, the one that would truly be significant would be that. It makes me wonder, why don't we have a larger other population for teachers? Or are they including, I think, why would Missouri have 15.6 as others? Are they biracial then?
Well,
are we using the same demographics?
We are, but it could also be teachers who don't identify. And again, when you think about special school district related to the entire Missouri, and what teachers may not identify as, and so that's where that comes in. Yes.
I have question is kind of a follow-up, if I may. And as far as verbiage and specifics, as pointed out in the information you gave us on the demographics, this may be just my particular take in that situation. But I know that oftentimes we talk about it here as white and black. But then when we start talking about other aspects of race and ethnicity, we only talk white and minority. And we talk about, in that situation on the race page, about percentage of employees by race and ethnicity. I'm just a stick for words because I know that sometimes words can deliver messages that don't necessarily get a point. And so when we talk about that, and we talk about specifically white and black and other dialogue, change to minority, we don't change to majority. Possibly some of the things my comrade was speaking to, correct me, sir, if I'm wrong, but in reference to the identity, as we know, there are individuals who, as you mentioned, don't necessarily pick a particular ethnic group to identify with. There are many who may be of different ethnicities that pick white. So I would like us to be able to, one, in our language, keep on point. What we're trying to accomplish in many cases, as I've said, deals with specific ethnicity. And so language is important to me. Clarity of language. The 13th Amendment said that we're no longer subjected to involuntary service. Have anything to do with voluntary service. You had no property, you had no money, you had no options, so you volunteered yourself. And therefore, what followed from that particular language of constitutional law led itself to everything that we still find ourselves trying to correct today. So, another question I had earlier talked about percentages in reference to the 2%. What's the breakdown of the persons that we are servicing?
Who's your service?
Meaning those individuals who are receiving our services, is it only 2% or 19%? That figure, combined with the amount of increase that we're reference to 2%. As far as our personnel, as far as our staffing, how many people are we employing? 2% would be 2% of 6,000, correct? Mm-hmm. Right, and that then represents what? 20 people? About. Okay. And so that 120, though, is going to be based upon ethnicity and not necessarily just both. That inclusive of both.
Be based on race.
Okay.
I know you spoke to words, and so race and ethnicity have a different determination, different outcome.
That's correct. And so those are just some points that I saw in the presentation that I had questions about. If we're increasing 2%, and that 2%, whatever that 2% represents in this situation was 19 to 2%, that's 21%. So our 21% of the people that we are servicing, Americans are minority that includes active ethnic. I just wanted to see if that particular increase was keeping up with services offered to individuals we service in that.
Great point.
I have a quick question on one.
Yes.
New HR
So we're looking at an information system step. We'd be able to provide the whole screening application as it relates to staff. And so that's what that system is. We're analyzing what that may be, and with OESC collaborating. And so that's what that system is, and being able to apply those pieces are key. So we have not determined that system yet, and so again, that's part of the process in collaboration.
Just wanted to jump in. By day, I'm a history and social, so I have a political climate that we really are bumping up against. Both sides. So I just appreciate so much that you do this, and I think it's just in your.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Question. So, sorry, going back to this slide over here, I think it was page. Do you have any breakdown in terms of our hires and our current work, our current coworker group in terms of direct student-facing, especially degree holding students?
Persons who are part of direct student.
And my next question was for Diggs about the. You said you were compiling a list of recommendations. Once that is complete, would you please send of your recommendations over here?
Absolutely. And I can speak a little bit to that. So we met with the CEIS team. Me, myself, I needed to do my own learning, so I asked for them to give me a wide range of assessment tools and theories that are used, with children to understand, diagnose, and also to troubleshoot. So I have a big stack of books in my office I've been piling through for the last couple of days. I'll be more than happy to share that with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And do we have any data on requests for IEPs, how often they're declined, not assessed?
We don't have that information.
Something to get to.
I agree.
Because I think there is a difference when requests are actually.
That is racial, or do you think that is socioeconomic?
I think it's all the above. I think
What you're saying, I'm just trying to.
it's all the above, and sometimes.
One of the things I have seen. Depending on where you're at. But it's just it's in the water. But it does happen when you get into hardware. It does happen in Kirkwood. I find that bizarre.
Thank you.
Now move to agenda item,
All right. Good evening, Vice President Byers, President Potrog, Dr. Keenan, Board of Directors. I'm Kevin Aner. I'm the Executive Director of Career and Technical Education and College and Career Readiness. I'll have the folks with me introduce themselves. Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me here. My name is Dr. Jacob Losey. I'm the principal.
And good evening. I'm Dr. Dennis Mix. I'm the Director of Adult Education.
And we will be providing for you today a update on career and technical education in the district. So, there it is. So what is career and technical education? So career and technical education provides students of all ages with the academic and technical skills, knowledge, and training necessary to succeed in careers and to become lifelong learners. This is from Advanced CTE, which is one of the professional organizations that we're connected to. We really like this definition because it's very quick, easy, and hits the high points of what we're trying to accomplish in our career and technical education programming, acknowledging that there's both an academic and a technical component to everything that we do. So career and technical education at Special School District. Quick reminder, we've got our two technical high schools, North Tech and South Tech. And in addition to that, we have our adult education program that's supervised by Dr. Mix. That's our applied tech program, that's our LPN program that's housed at North Tech and South Tech. And then we also have STL training, which that is our customized training component, where we work with businesses to provide customized training for them, as well as our apprenticeship program that we have in CNA. And then we also have a program in CMT. So both of those in the healthcare space, and there's some grant dollars that pay for those programs. So then a recap of who goes where. So you've got the list of sending schools for North Tech and South Tech. No changes in which districts go where. Keep in mind that if there is a program that a student wants to attend that is not at their respective school, they are able to travel to the other campus for that program. We are continuing to work towards alignment in programming, but like right now, we have two students from Clayton High School that are attending North Tech because the diesel program is only at North Tech. There isn't the diesel program at South Tech. So students do have that opportunity to attend the other campus if the program they're looking for is not housed at that site. And then adult education, just keep in mind that that's open to any adult learner. There are no boundaries to adult education, so they do not even have to be a resident of Missouri, let alone a resident of St. Louis County. And now all of that programming is housed at North Tech and South Tech, since our Applied Tech program left the Met Center and has now moved into the North Tech campus. So we're going to do some quick review by the numbers. Some of this should look familiar in previous years. These are similar data points that we've looked at. As a reminder, any resident of St. Louis County who is of high school age is eligible to participate in our programming. They can be a homeschool student, they can be a private school student in addition to public. At South Tech, you will see in the data we have Fox and Windsor students who are participating as well. They're not going to show up in some of the graphs that we look at, but just keep in mind they factor into our enrollment. Students from Jefferson County are only able to participate in programming if we have space available after seats have been filled with St. Louis County residents. So the number of spaces available to them is going to vary from year to year. Students do have to meet program eligibility requirements to enroll in our programs. The big component of that is being on time or on track for on-time high school graduation. And then individual programs have their own individual prerequisite requirements, like our health sciences program requires a C or better in previous science coursework. And that's going to vary by program by program. Okay, so demographic breakdown between our two schools. So you've got the breakdown for the sending schools that we serve and then what the population looks like in our building. So like in North Tech, you can see that 73.72% of the students in our sending schools are African American, and that's pretty in line with our population that we have at North Tech, which is 79.86% African American. You also have down there at the bottom the percentage of students with IEPs. Both North Tech and South Tech have a higher concentration of students with IEPs than what you're going to see in the schools that we serve. North Tech is about 18.5% of our students are students with IEPs. South Tech, it's almost 27% of our students are students with IEPs. South Tech is predominantly white. It is 72.9% white. That's in line with the sending schools that we serve. Keep in mind that that white includes students who are Bosnian and Russian, as well as some of our Hispanic population is also captured in that white demographic. And so when you look at that data, recognize there is some diversity within that. A lot of our English language learner population at South falls into that category of white. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at that data. Overall enrollment in comparison to capacity. So based off how much space we have, how are we doing? We think this is a fairer way to look at our numbers. And so you can see 22-23 school year, North Tech is at 80% capacity, South Tech is at 82% capacity. For overall, 81% of our available seats are filled. That's above pre-pandemic levels. If you go back to our last full normal school year, which was the 2018-19 school year, where we started and ended in the same building, we were at 78.9% for capacity. So we've really gotten the ship back on the right course and back to pre-pandemic levels. South Tech, you will see, was at 87% last school year. That was I'd call it one-time blip, because we had, with the pandemic, trying to recruit students virtually was a challenge. And so we had a large number of senior students enrolling in a 2-year program, and it's not possible to retain a senior into the second year of a 2-year program. And so those seats in the second year of the program then went empty because you can't keep them for the second year. They chose to graduate instead, which is our desired outcome for those students. But that does impact the data as far as a capacity component goes. So that's kind of a one-time blip. I hope that we're not recruiting virtually ever again for our program. We can be in person. So then this is similar data to what we looked at last year. This is percentage of students eligible that enrolled at North Tech. So at the top there, you've got Jennings. What that line tells you is 11.4% of Jennings sophomores, juniors, and seniors are participating in a program at North Tech. So 11.4% of the eligible population is at North Tech. Eligible meaning they're in the appropriate grade. Overall, North Tech, 6.4% of the students in grades 10 through 12 in that catchment area are enrolled at North Tech for this school year. And that's what that blue line represents. So anybody above the blue line is above what our overall average is of 6.4%. Anybody below that line is slightly below. And you will notice that Pattonville is kind of right there at the line at 6.3%. We're actually really excited about 6.3% for Pattonville. For those that have been around a while, if you looked at the same data 3 years ago, Pattonville was down there at the bottom of University City. Pattonville numbers have grown dramatically. We've had a change in our admissions staff, so we have a new admissions rep who's working with Pattonville. We also have a lot of support from the guidance department at Pattonville High School that has helped move the needle and really make sure that all students are aware of the opportunity. Where before we were reaching a more narrow student population, now it's becoming a much more mainstream option. And so we're seeing that pay off in enrollment of students. So we're really excited about that. And like Normandy, you see it's at 6.2%. They're kind of right there at the line. We think this is a fairer way to look at the data, because otherwise our smaller schools would look like they're not really participating. But in reality, for proportion, they are sending a lot of students into our programs. That story is even more true when you look at the data for South Tech. At the top of the list are some of our smallest schools: Bayless, Valley Park, Maplewood, Hancock, Brentwood. They're all above that blue line. Those districts, especially Bayless, 1 in 5 Bayless students is at South Tech, which is absolutely incredible. And then Valley Park's right behind them at 17%. And so those smaller schools are really seeing South Tech as the logical next step, as opposed to them trying to build out a full 4-year pathway in a content area. They're building out a 2-year pathway with an off-ramp for those students then to continue their studies at South Tech, which is really what we like to see from our sending schools. And then that blue line as well represents the overall 5.8% of the eligible students in South Tech service area are enrolled at South Tech. And then placement results. So where did our graduates go for this last year? Both schools, right around 50% of our students continue on to college or post-secondary training. We are continuing to see the percentage of students who are employed post-high school continue to grow. Again, this data pre-pandemic, it was about 25% of our students were workforce bound. Now it's up to a third. The world of 3% unemployment has been very good for us. Where employers before who were hesitant to hire a young person right out of high school based off solely high school training now have had to think different about the labor pipeline, and as a result, that's led to more students being able to get the jobs right out of high school that they normally would go to post-secondary training for. North Tech also saw a pretty dramatic increase in the percentage of students going military. In years past, it was around 1%. This last school year, we had a higher concentration, almost 4%, or over 4% chose to go military. That way, oh, go ahead.
Just a quick question. On the employed, is that an employed in their field?
So that does not mean employed related to their field. It could be any gainful employment that's 20 hours or more per week. But I will say of the employed percentage, if both schools were over 70% were employed related to what they did to us.
That was what I'd like to see.
Yeah, and so we can give you that breakdown, both overall, the two schools, college-related and employed-related, both schools, it was over 70%, continued on in a related capacity. We had some students that we couldn't count as related, where I said they were in progress to being related, like a student who's working at UPS with the plan to be a diesel mechanic there, but they first have to load trucks before they get to do that. So they're on track to being related, but at the time that we did our graduate follow-up, they just weren't there yet. All right, so now we're going to do some updates for the 2023 year. I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Mick.
Only one button, so it should be two. Good evening. Like Tech, we are one of 35 LPN schools in the state of Missouri. Our program is approved by the Missouri State Board of Nursing to accept 33 students 4 times a year. We take 2 classes at each campus, North and South Tech. Our NCLEX pass rates, and that's the licensure exam that our graduates take to become a licensed practical nurse, is at 81.58 for the last year. Our placement rate, we had 69 positive contacts. All of those folks were working in, as an LPN or as a graduate practical nurse prior to taking their licensure. And we had 7 we could not get a hold of, so we were not able to count them. And currently, the entry-level LPN wage in St. Louis, which is really exciting, is $46.81. And when I started this job 17 years ago, that number was about 16. So it's a wonderful place for folks to come to us for a 12-month program, and they jump right into the middle class. As far as our goals and priorities, our first goal is always to move to that 80% completion rate, along with an 80% first-time state board pass rate. The state board pass rate is set by the Missouri State Board of Nursing. 100% placement rate, always our goal. We're not seeing any pressure in that number coming down. The nursing field is alive and well on Seaway. Complete our skills lab at North Tech. If you haven't had a chance to see our facility at North Tech and Sea Wing, it is a showcase. We have a couple more things to purchase for that facility to get that lab all the way done. And then our continued investment in faculty professional development. That's always a priority to keep our nurses current and relevant in their field. And in 2023, we have our Health Career Expo. It's next week. It'll be from 11:30 to 1:30 at South Tech High School. I would encourage you to come out and see it. There's a picture of the one from the year before last. We're going to have 71 vendors, and these are all folks actively hiring nurses. What's exciting about this is we bring our Health Oc High School kids from North Tech and South Tech also, even our food service kids, because all of these facilities are hiring all of those skills. So our high school kids get an opportunity to meet folks that are looking to hire when they graduate. Some of our celebrations, our North Tech space was approved by our accreditor. Our national accreditor is the Council on Occupational Education, and it has been approved by the Missouri State Board of Nursing. The increased student interest following relocation at North Tech has been phenomenal. Currently, in the next 4 weeks, we have 165 people registered to take our entry test. That's typically twice of what we see in a month at this time. So North Tech is really a great location to serve those students in a beautiful, safe, secure facility that really provides for their needs. Turn it over to Dr. Lose.
Hello again, I'm Jake Losey, Principal of South Tech. Thanks again for having me here. South Tech has some goals and priorities for this year that we set out over the summer as an administrative team. And the first one is in the realm of equity and inclusion. So South Tech has been on a multi-year pathway to develop an equity team and then to roll some of that learning and information out to the broader staff. So we're in our second year for the equity team. And this year, we've had monthly meetings with the staff that participate in that committee with the role of developing an equity walkthrough and some equity points that we can get through our classrooms and our shops to point out. And then to help that information broaden out into the generic staff and the general shop teachers, with the introduction next year of more full staff training based on that foundational learning that we've done with the equity team. Our second goal was in climate and culture, and that was to help build us back after our COVID times when we weren't really able to do some of our career and technical student organizations. Our students weren't able to compete on a regional and national level. So we set out a goal to have 66% of our students participate in at least 2 CTSO events each year, and we are well above that right now. And then in addition to that, we wanted to really bring our staff back together after being separated, both by construction and by COVID. So we re-enrolled some staff committees, and with a goal of 50% of our staff participating in some sort of a committee throughout the year, and we're also slated to beat that goal. Finally, our student success. We have had some great success in past years with our students earning industry-recognized credentials and stackable credentials, but with a goal of 60% of our students who we report in our Perkins reporting to actually achieve an industry-recognized credential or a stackable credential. Those are going on now. We have a lot of programs that are wrapping up their testing for the school year, both within April and then at the beginning of May before our seniors graduate. Some of our celebrations at South Tech, first of all and biggest, is the substantial completion of our construction project. South Tech is beautiful. Our building now represents the great things that are happening in our shops and programs, which is wonderful to see. It's a much safer building, being able to move visitors in through the main office directly so that we can understand who's coming into our building, who are we checking in with our background checks. One really great component was we separated the front of the building with a new student entrance, which has really helped the flow of the building run really well. We added a student commons where students can go and break, get a snack at their break because they have a 2.5 hour program. The hardest part about that is having our cosmetology students not meeting up with our HVAC students for a little meet cute in front of the Pepsi machine. But we kind of run them back because we want them to make sure that they are working hard in their shops and programs. We've also wanted to advance our co-curricular activities, so that is Skills USA and some other opportunities for students to compete both regionally and nationally. And just a note there is we actually qualified 4 students for the National Skills USA competition in Atlanta for this summer, which we are really proud of, including one junior who's going to be a repeat contestant. He took 3rd nationally in web design, so he's going to compete again. So hopefully he'll get 3rd or higher. We're really excited for him. And then in addition to that, just expanding our work with our Ameren program, our Spire program, and our business partnerships. We have more than 50 seniors right now that are out on internship. So 4th quarter seniors get to go out into the workforce, and they're working with our business partners, and it's been great to see. And then finally, that student success. The last couple of years, we've had some amazing numbers with our work keys testing, our IRCs, stackable credentials, and our CTE certificate attainment from our seniors and even our juniors.
All right, so the North Tech goals and priorities should look really familiar to South Tech goals and priorities. So same content areas and equity. North Tech was focusing on revising the process for students doing experiential learning opportunities and making sure that all students are getting access to experiential learning opportunities, not just some. There we're talking about getting them off-site, out of our campus and out into the world of work, leaning into challenges like transportation and those components. That we had some really intentional things set up for some programs like clinical experiences for health sciences, but then graphic design wasn't getting the same opportunities. And so we wanted to be really intentional about the way that we prioritize transportation and the way that we schedule so that all programs and all students are getting out of our buildings and out into the world of work, and that everyone's getting those high-quality experiences. Climate and culture, also focusing on career and technical student organizations, getting 66% of our students to participate in 2 or more activities. North Tech is also on track for that. And in student success, also focusing on industry-recognized credentials, getting 60% or more of our students who are seniors that will be reporting this year to earn 2 stackable credentials or 1 standalone industry-recognized credential. And so celebrations for North Tech, so 2 new programs that will be starting in August. First is dental sciences. Construction on that lab is getting ready to start. That program is full with a wait list at this point. And then the other program, and that's without a classroom or a teacher, which is pretty incredible. And then multimedia will also be starting in August, and we're excited to get that class off the ground as well. So those 2 will be getting everything sewn up over the summer, and they'll be good to go for August. We have returned to pre-pandemic levels of student participation in field experiences and co-curricular activities, like Dr. Lozzi was talking about. North Tech also has student qualified in the national competition for Skills USA. We have one of our cosmetology students who will be moving on to Atlanta. We were also thrilled to have 39 of our students compete at the state competition, which is housed between Lynn, Missouri, Jefferson City, and Columbia. And for many of our students, that trip to state is one of the first times they've left the St. Louis metropolitan area and gotten exposed to the rest of the state of Missouri. And then they get to interact with students from all over the state. So we're thrilled to be able to get back to those types of opportunities for our students. Last thing that we just recently wrapped up was a principal search. Thrilled that we have with us this evening Manuel Young, who will be our principal for North Tech for the 2023-2024 school year. I'm going to have Mr. Young come up and just briefly introduce himself.
Greetings, and thank you for the opportunity to stand before you. I'm really excited to serve and to lead North Technical High School. It is a place that is near and dear to my heart. I grew up minutes away from North Tech. My father was an adult student at North Technical High School many moons ago. I've had colleagues and I've had even relatives go through North Tech, so I'm very passionate about the community, very excited about the opportunity to go back to the community that has given so much to me. I want to thank you all for your support and look forward to working with you more deeply in the coming months. Thank you.
I am also thrilled to have him on board. Here we go. So career technical education next steps. So we are working on North Tech and South Tech, updating our vision and mission statements. It's been about 5 years since we've revisited this, so it's time. Also looking at our branding and marketing materials, continue to expand our work with career and technical student organizations, and then continue to focus on credential attainment, so those student success pieces. On the adult education side, continuing to update curriculum and instruction to prepare students for the changes that continue to occur to the NCLEX, which is that licensure assessment for our LPN students. So you're probably asking yourself, this is fantastic. How can I help these wonderful people who are involved in career and technical education? Good news, we have options for you. First one, please continue to support the future capital improvements on our campuses. What we do is expensive. Our buildings were built in the 1960s. The infrastructure needs alone, when you think about electricity, water, all of those are things that we need for our programs to happen. And those are not necessarily super exciting things that you're going to see on a tour as a new roof. That's not very exciting. Or improved electrical infrastructure. It's not very exciting, but it's what allows to make our programs happen. I know that Toby talked about some of that in his update about facilities improvements, but a lot of capital improvements in our locations to be able to continue to offer the cutting-edge, high-quality programming that we're doing. We also have renovate the Bridges space. As you know, Bridges got a new building this school year. That space has been vacated. They took over what was our old electrical trades building, and now we need to dig into converting what was Bridges into a lab for electrical trades. So that's kind of the next phase of that project. Currently, they're kind of operating out of a temporary space. We're making it work, but we really need to get that program into a new space that's really designed intentionally for that program because it's become a destination program for us. And then the other thing that we're working on is our long-term facility plan to continue to renovate existing shop spaces. As I mentioned, we've been operating in spaces that we've been housed in since the 60s, and so one by one, year over year, we're really to the point where we do an overhaul on each one of those shop spaces that we have left. And then the last thing is just help us tell our story, making sure that folks understand that career and technical education is a mainstream option, that's a good option for any student that wants to get experiential learning, that wants to explore and try things out. We're a good fit for that student. Sometimes it's thought, well, this is only for students who are going to work, not students who are going to college. This is a really good opportunity for both college and career-bound students. It's not just for students who can't perform academically. We're not an alternative high school program. Those are myths that we hear on a recurring basis. So anything you can do to help us combat those myths and really reinforce These are high-quality opportunities for youth who want to explore, whether they're going to college, career, military. This is a really good launching pad for any young person. Questions?
For the nurses, we need them. From an SSD student to an SSD employee.
Sure.
Do we have some sort of?
We're having conversations with our students, and we're talking about having a meeting with some of our students in a forum where we can have some conversations with them about what are their expectations and then what are SSD's expectations. Because we would love for our students to graduate our program, pass boards, and come to work for our district. We have some great folks that are compassionate and have been working in healthcare for a long time. They can be a great service for our district.
My next question, when you said that we're at 80% capacity, is that, like, I'm kind of.
Is that good?
Okay, don't we want 100% capacity?
So 100% is where we'd like to get to, recognizing that we run 2-year programs for high school students. So you might be really excited about something as a 15-year-old, and by the time you're an 18-year-old, you might not share that same enthusiasm. And so the idea of having 100% program retention is just not necessarily sustainable, because it's just as important for students to rule something in as it is to rule it out. And so if we have students who come into a program, they're with us for the junior year, and at the end of the junior year, they say, really thankful for the experience, but I just don't think this is for me, we know it's going to happen. So we think that our long-term goal is to get back to 90% capacity is where we want to be. But 100% capacity, not necessarily attainable with the structure of our program as 2-year programs. Then we know along the way there's going to be students who, for a variety of reasons, choose to not continue.
Follow up on that too. I mean, when we're looking at an 80% capacity, that's not program specific though, right? Because I know, like, for example, our cosmetology program, that I'm sure is at close to 100%. Perhaps there's others that are less so. The average is just showing us overall, but definitely have programs.
Absolutely. So we do, Dr. Byers, have programs where between junior and senior year, it's full boat, where we bring in a full class and we hold a full class. But we do have some programs that are below that, and we do also look year over year at those programs that are lower capacity. There is a number of programs since I've gotten here that we've phased out, just because they weren't a program that students really were interested in pursuing. Horticulture is a program that we use to offer broadcast captioning and court reporting, try to get a 16-year-old excited about court reporting. I wish you the best, but it's just not going to stick. And so we've had programs like that where it's, well, we have a teacher, we have a classroom, could that be better served as something else? And so that's what we're constantly looking at, is we don't want to duplicate what our sending schools are doing. And we want to make sure that we're really going into areas where there's student interest, there's industry need, there's a clear post-secondary pathway for those students.
And over the years, we've talked about possibly developing programs. Our students who are also in special education.
So if you look back at the data earlier on in the presentation, we have a very high concentration of students with IEPs. We have students from Northview, New Owner, and Southview participating in our programs. South Tech has Southview, New Owner is going to North Tech, and Northview is at North Tech. So we do have students even from our SSD schools that are able to participate in our programming. We've had students from Bridges in the past who've participated in our programming. Now the volume of that does vary from year to year, and it needs to fit with the student's post-secondary plan. And you're not going to see it on the.
I didn't see
the percentage, and that's because that one's tricky because you've got the K through 17 population. Okay. That's a weird percentage to calculate of who really is in that eligible pool. But I can send you the numbers of where we have students coming from, and they are even in SSD schools participating in our programs. We're really focusing on if this fits into the student's post-secondary pathway. But South Tech, it's more than 1 in 4 students who are students with an IEP. North Tech is close to 1 in 5 students with an IEP. And then for the students that can't be served by our programming, VSP and CBVI is also a really good option for those students if they're looking for a more supportive environment. And so we do work with closely with, Director Wisdom and her team for students who that might be a better fit, what they need on a career training side.
I just want to say thank you and welcome.
So much.
We'll move on to, item 2.04, which is our near site health.
Even again, Myers, Board of Education, Dr. Phil Boyd, Chief People and Culture Officer, and I will be presented today with our Director of Insurance and Benefits, Brendan Garza. The purpose of this presentation is just to give you an oversight of some of the activities that have been happening, actually, not only within OASC, but in partnership with Dr. Cobb and Finance and also Communications. We've been exploring our partnership with MMA, our consultant for health insurance benefits, a potential expansion of offerings for our employees in terms of potential clinics. This would be a partnership with Pattonville, Francis Howell, and Parkway. And what this would allow is access to more personal health care and also some reduced costs for our staff as well. So we're going to double team tonight, and Director Leonard is going to be first, and then
Mr. President, Vice President, Dr. Keenan, and the board, thank you for having us this afternoon, this evening. As Mr. Boyd said, I'm Brenda Juliardis, and I'm the Director of Insurance and Benefits here at SSD. So why a near-site clinic? As a part of our annual survey, we had feedback from our employees stating that they wanted more affordable health care. So we're looking into the near-site clinic. It provides a reduced amount for out-of-pocket expenses for employees. They offer same-day and next-day services for appointments and that, and then they also have referrals to our specialists that are in our networks at Aetna. And then there has improved the absenteeism rate, and then it improves the recruitment and retention as well. Based on a 2021 Mercer survey, 31% of all companies that have 5,000 plus employees provide a primary care clinic. About half of those eligible employees and a third of their dependents actually participate in the clinic. Marsh McLennan Agency conducted a comprehensive market analysis on behalf of Francis Howell, Parkway, and then Pattonville. We have an RFP process that went out to 8 companies. 6 of those responded, and then we narrowed it down to 3 finalists. So the finalists were Care ACT, Eversight, and then Proactive MD. Care ACT actually had the better cost per employee per month, and their engagement levels were a little bit lower than the other finalists. Care ACT is the current provider for Parkway, Pattonville, and Francis Howell. They offer 138 health centers in 28 states, and about 10% of their clients are education sector. And then if we decide to join the clinic, then they will actually build a work site for us out in South County. So these are some of the services that are available at the Care ACT clinic. So they provide comprehensive medical health visits. They have on-site labs, and then also there's on-site pharmacy as well, and at no cost to the employee.
also one of the benefits partnering with Care ATCs that currently we have 80% of our employees are within 30 minutes of a Care ATC clinic. We expect that number to be even higher with the establishment. The other thing that's very important about this offering is that we really want to look at our experiencing near 40% employee engagement rate and 50 to 60% of the appointments are typically for chronic conditions. So the reason that's important is that you have more employees that are actually switching over to Care ATC as their primary care doctor. One of our partner districts actually experienced in one of our sites, 70% of employees that had visited the north side in the Bridgeton area switched over to that site as their primary care doctor. Also, what our partners have seen is that with the increase in primary care visits, they also were able to see a decrease in absences and an ability for their staff members to actually be more consistent in biometric screenings and taking care of those initial primary care level assessments so that people can catch things ahead of time. We also saw up to double-digit reduction in ER utilization, inpatient admissions, and health plan costs with those engaged members. We think that this is a great time to allow for this access because we can also offer incentives, such as making sure that visits to the clinic don't count against your PTO, and also making sure that there are increased ability to have personal health care assessments and follow-up. What they have found is that there has not been an increase in the wait times for our employees. And in fact, there are times when they're getting into see their doctors at Care ATC in a much faster time than they could at even an urgent care. Questions?
So, the goal is any employee can our health insurance from us go to any of these three clinics, and it is at a greatly reduced cost compared to if they went to urgent care.
Okay. We have either lower to zero copays that they would experience,
Okay.
and there as well.
Gotcha. And then what if an employee happens to be on houses?
Fortunately, the partnership is based upon staff involvement with the current offerings of the employer.
Okay, so they have to be on the, okay. That's right?
I understand. Employee comes.
If they are referred to a specialist, if they're treated immediately, but if it's something that needs to be seen, but they would refer back to any of our resources that we currently have services as well, that will go back to those services.
And if a patient, for example, an employee comes in, they continue for ATC, or will they then have?
Or Care ATC can't be the primary.
They could continue to prescribe.
Pardon the first question.
currently has 3 clinics.